Good morning, sports fans. It's Lincoln Shrike coming to you from my humble abode here in Taylor, Texas. Joined today by Gordon Mack somewhere in, I don't know, southeast Texas, near a beach, maybe in the parking lot of a fast food restaurant. It's the FloTrack podcast. You can email the show, flotrackpodcast@gmail.com. Gordon, how are you doing today?
Doing good. I'm in Galveston, Texas, which is right outside of Houston, about 3.5 hours away from Austin, Texas. Came here for the week to go to the beach, and it's it's nice and empty because it's the weekday, right? Not many people here. People come here on the weekends, so took advantage of that. And I'm in a McDonald's parking lot, like you said, where they have good Wi-Fi. Because my Airbnb lied about their Wi-Fi. They said, "Oh yeah, we have Wi-Fi," and then I come in and they don't have it. It's fake.
Is it like
It's not
dial-up?
real Wi-Fi. Well, it just doesn't work. It just signs you off every 2 minutes. So
that's fun.
You know,
how do you even get that? How do you get bad Wi-Fi? Like, how does that work anymore? I don't even know.
I think you get bad Wi-Fi when the Wi-Fi is only for your Airbnb guests and not your own Wi-Fi. So you don't really care, right? You're like, oh, it doesn't work. Oh, I'm sorry. Go to the beach. So I think they kind of you're not really encouraged to fix your Wi-Fi if you're not using it. So I think that's why. But
got it.
Yep. So then I come to McDonald's, and now we're good.
Perfect. So yesterday we had a podcast with a couple guests from the Sit and Kick podcast, Josh Kerr and David Ribich of Beast fame. You didn't make it all the way through that episode. Your computer did not stay lit up, did not stay charged the entire time. I guess it was, you already started at something in the 60s. But that podcast stretched for an hour and a half. And this one, we're going to try to make it just a little bit shorter, just so we can keep you for the whole episode. Because yesterday we were able to finish it, but I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this if you disappear halfway through. So we'll try to make sure that you keep on the air. So just a couple news bits right off the top. World Athletics doing another Ultimate Garden Clash pole vault after the smashing success of the first one. This time it will be a female version, and I realized I was about to announce this, and I got to make sure I remember who all the athletes were. I know Katerina Stefanini will be participating. Looks like the U.S.'s Katie Nageau, I never know if I'm pronouncing her name right, and then a Canadian, Alicia Newman, in the pole vault. They're going to try to jump over 4 meters this time, as many times as possible. It's on Saturday, 11 a.m. Central Time. Will you be watching?
I will not be watching. I will rely on the updates via Twitter of, hey, this is what happened. Again, I really think that the Ultimate Garden Clash needs to be a trick shot competition, like a slam dunk contest, not a endurance contest. I'm surprised when you say the list of the names they got on the women's side, they couldn't get some of the big leaguers. No Sandy Morris, no Jen Sher, the Russian athlete's not there. Because you think about
there's a reason for no Russian athletes.
Hey, authorized people can still garden clash it up in Russia, no matter what.
I am surprised.
You gotta admit, they got 3 of the top 5 guys. They got 3 of the top 5 guys, at least, on the men's side. I don't think they have 3 of the top 5 women here. But whatever, we can watch them jump over 4 meters or vault over 4 meters. It'd be fun.
I mean,
but yeah, I still want
is legit. Like they got her.
Yes,
and Nageau is good, and Newman, they definitely missed the boat not getting Sandy Morris, I would say. So that I'm surprised because she's into snakes, which are a staple of all good gardens. I thought this would be like right up her alley.
Well, I guarantee you, they probably asked Sandy Morris first because they put her on all this stuff. Like she's always doing like little video messages. She's always retweeted and quote tweeted and stuff. So I bet you she was asked. So
let's check her Twitter right now. I'm trying to figure out why she's not doing this.
She definitely said no to it. And the question is, what were the reasons?
Oh, here we go. Hold on. There have been a few questions regarding why I'm not participating. Bad timing, but a week ago I had an injection I had been planning since I bugged up my knee during indoor season. I can't run for 2 more weeks. Okay, so she's got like a legitimate injury concern of why she's not doing this.
I like to think that there's too many snakes. I like to think there's too many snakes in her yard, and that's why.
Yeah, it could be, but it's also probably the fact that she can't run for 2 more weeks. It's just irritating cartilage damage. So Sandy Morris, very online. We understand why she's not competing. It would have been fun to see her. We'll have the American representation, Katie Nageau. I mean, I think with the thing we saw with the men's competition, the most interesting factor is just seeing how the professional track and field athletes live. I didn't realize basically all these pole vaulters had pole vault runways in their backyard. I'm going to be fascinated to see how what the setups are like for these women. And Stefanidi, although she's Greek, and I'm not sure where she's located right now, but normally she trains at Spire outside Cleveland in Ohio. So we may be seeing multiple athletes in the United States this time.
Interesting. So they're doing these back-to-back garden clashes. Like, when do we start getting a new version that's not vault based, right? When what do you think will be the next event they start trying to go into after they do the men and women's pole vault?
I mean, high jump is obvious. Why can't we do a high jump? We get Mutaz Essa Barshim from Doha. We get Derek Druin from somewhere in Canada. I mean, these all seem possible, right? Like the jumping ones feel appropriate.
Yeah,
because you can't
see him doing a shot put too.
Yeah, a shot put, but I don't know. Like that is a viewing thing. Is like that's all dependent on where you set up. Like with a pole vault or a jump, you can tell if they succeeded or not. I mean, a thrower could be like, I just set a world record. And like, you would be kind of like, because you need multiple angles. You need them in the ring, and then you got to follow the shot put. Here, it's just like, well, obviously they cleared it or not. I guess we are suspending our disbelief, like believing that the height is at its appropriate height. But still, I think the jumps make it quite easy.
Are you saying some of the vaulters are rounding up with their height? They go, oh yeah, it's 5 meters, so it's 4.95. That rounds up to 5.
Yeah. Well, it's possible. I mean, I don't want to eliminate all conspiracies. I want to know, you said you're not watching. What event would you feel compelled to watch? Like what is good enough to get Gordon Mack to get off the beach and go to his Airbnb and watch something if the Wi-Fi was hypothetically good enough? Like, what would you watch?
I mean, I would love to watch just a straight up. I would love to watch an elite distance runner time trial. You know, kind of like what Drew Hunter did. I didn't watch it, but like something like that. But it would be cool if like it was just a, 3 screens, 4 screens, and they are running the same race and they all start at the same time, and then they just run a fast time. I would watch that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of these elite athletes, we talked with Josh and Dave Ribich coming on a pod, which will be posted on Monday. You guys can watch that and listen to that on Monday. Great pod. But a lot of these elite athletes are doing time trials, right? And some of these time trials aren't filmed. They're unknown, because they kind of have to get some type of race effort done in these multiple months of no races. So it'd be cool to see some of these time trials. That's what I would
definitely. I encourage all these athletes, and they should definitely do an ultimate oval clash and have athletes go to tracks if they're available, and we can say go at the same time, and then they can virtually race. I mean, that would be awesome. It's just like,
I like how you called it an ultimate oval clash and not just a track meet.
Yeah, I don't know. It had to have a weird name.
We should start calling these everything an ultimate clash now. Every meet, race, every like meeting, every like corporate meeting.
Ultimate.
It's the ultimate
needs to be
clash.
ultimate. This is the ultimate. Yeah, I love that. Okay, we've covered the news. I don't think there was anything else. I said it was going to be a couple things, but that was one thing. And go ahead.
One last. I just want to get credit. We had a debate about where we thought Nick Willis would sign. What was this, on Monday or Friday?
Yeah, but Kevin litigated this and he said that it was a draw because you said it would be a local company. It is not a local company. And yes, it's a smaller company than Brooks or Hoka, but there's elements, I think, because it is a running brand, and there's elements where you could say it's right on your side, and there's elements where I could say I was right on my side as far as where is Nick Willis going to sign. I think it's a draw.
I wish I was part of this. I'm guessing you discussed this without my presence on the previous pod. Is that what happened?
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't listening to the pod, so I would like to. I think I need to call a mistrial on this because all parties are not present on that draw. But
what's your
whatever.
argument for yourself winning that debate? And just for listeners that aren't familiar, over the weekend or on Monday, Nick Willis teased that he had an exciting announcement. We debated on whatever it was, Monday's show, what it was going to be. I said I thought he was going to sign with a new brand, either Hoka or Brooks. Gordon thought it was going to be a partnership with like a local, either running store or small brand,
Like
something separate from a
something.
new shoe deal. Yeah.
Yeah, something that's not a shoe deal.
Yeah.
I said it was going to be an apparel.
I'll have to go back and listen to Monday's show to make sure that's explicitly what you said. But he ends up signing with Tracksmith. He turns amateur, if you will, whatever that means. And I felt like there was elements of both because they're going to make a kit for him. He's going to wear their gear. He's sponsored by them. But of course, it's separate from what we're normally seeing. It's definitely unique. It's not like he just signed with Nike or anything. And we'll just be wearing their shoes and not much else. He's got a job with them. He's got stuff to do. So it's different. I feel like.
I don't know. I think he's 37. He's kind of in the twilight of his career. So he's just trying to get what he can. And this Tracksmith deal is something that can kind of use to sunset his career through the next 2 years, 2.5, 1 year, whatever. I'm guessing he's going to hang it up after the Olympics
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. But hey, much respect to Nick Willis and Mary Kane getting that contract. You gotta respect it, right? It's hard to get paid to be someone who runs in circles, and anytime you can do that, it should be smiled.
Well, that's why they're doing more than just running in circles. But yeah, totally agree. Okay. So today's show, it's a Thursday episode, of course. So we've got to come up with something. But everyone always wants to know, what's your Thursday show going to be? And today, because it's May and it's in the middle of May and it would be conference weekend, we're thinking about conferences in the NCAA. But instead of talking about track, no one wants to talk about track right now. Let's talk about cross country, everyone's favorite sport. We're going to go through all the Division I conferences and just kind of banter about if they're overrated or underrated. No middle ground here. Overrated or underrated when it comes to cross country. Or have I set the parameters correctly here?
Yeah. Do you know how many Division I cross country conferences there are?
Is there 32, 33?
Correct. It's 32. And it's kind of interesting because earlier this week or late last week, we talked about how if that new NCAA system does take place in the qualifying for cross country, there will be 32 automatic bids. And so a winner. So we can kind of talk about how, like, is it ridiculous that the champion of this overrated conference that we decide on gets an automatic bid to the system, 5 regional system? So we'll go in alphabetical order.
I like it.
We'll start with the America East Conference. So the America East Conference, notable teams in that conference are New Hampshire. That's where El Purier went.
There you go.
Stony Brook has a couple good up-and-coming guys. And then UMass Lowell also has some sub-14 type guys. Binghamton had a few people, but it's all these northeastern, very like New England-y type schools, Hartford, Albany, Maine.
So
what are your thoughts
are we
on this
saying
conference?
Historically they're overrated or underrated, or like the conference as it is currently constructed with the athletes they have now? I think it'd be more fun to do historically, like the names they've had throughout the years. Okay. So I would say with that caveat that this is certainly an an underrated conference. You mentioned El Purrier being in there. Maine is in this conference. They had Riley Masters at one point. Binghamton, they had a good miler way back in the day. Eric Van something, you know who I'm talking about.
Yes. Van Engen,
they've had some pretty solid like All-American caliber athletes. Now, as far as cross country on its own, team wise, maybe they struggle to get together the five, so you could really, I guess knock them down a peg. But I don't think anyone's going to say that the America East is overrated. I think it's underrated when you look at their times from this past fall. I mean, I know times don't matter in cross country, but the winner, Christopher Alfond of their conference meet, ran 23:38 for 8K. It's pretty good. It's pretty good, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's overrated. I think every conference is going to have a few people who are, stars that could have gone to a bigger school. But I think historically, no one, the American East Conference is not really talked about and hasn't really had one year where it's like, whoa, I really want to watch this race. And because of that, I would say overrated. They need more consistency of these stars coming in.
Okay.
So I would go overrated.
Okay, we better go a little quicker through each one. America East got a little too much play there. Okay, the AAC, the American Athletic Conference, famously they have Tulsa up there. Tulsa, what'd they end up getting at NCAA's this past year? They got like 5th. So not much besides Tulsa, but I'm gonna go underrated because those Golden Hurricane, they really rep the AAC, a relatively new conference, only like 5 or 6 years old as a conference. So, Tulsa, they push them over the edge to underrated.
I'm gonna stick with overrated. Just because you have one good team doesn't mean you're a good conference. After Tulsa, it's a big drop off. I mean, Temple on the men's side took second. Wichita State's been good. I mean, obviously they've had some good individuals come out of Wichita State, but on the women's side at least. But I'm going to still go overrated. You need some depth, baby. If you're one, for me, it's hard for a smaller conference to get that underrated title unless they have more than just either one team or more than just one individual. So I'm going. We're 2 for 2 on disagreeing right here.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't really have time to just argue about it. We got to keep moving. Okay, well, let's go to the A10. Swept this past fall by LaSalle. I'm gonna go with overrated. I don't even know who overrates this, but this is a pretty weak conference as it currently stands. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll go overrated as well. Big shout out though to
overrating it, but yeah. Shout out to
Lote Black. I forget how to say her name. The Rhode Island
Lottie
athlete.
Black. Yeah.
Lottie
Rhode
Black.
Island.
Good miler.
Yeah.
So big ups to her. But they don't really have much going on. I mean, yeah. So
not a lot going on. Yeah. Okay, we move on to one of the big ones, one of the Power Fives, the ACC. This I would say is underrated. This is a very good conference. They always have a nice conference meet between Syracuse and Notre Dame. The Virginias are in there as well. NC State. I mean, this is a really good conference. If you overrate this conference, I'm not sure what to do with you here.
Well, I'm going to overrate it because
how is it overrated?
Syracuse, Notre Dame, they're great teams. NC State on the women's side, great teams. But this is a big conference. There's 15 teams here. Right. And a lot of these teams suck. Like, I'm just going to say it. Like, you go to if you get 5th in this conference, you're not that good of a team. Like, you're just not. Like, 5th to 15th. I mean, like, there's just some bad teams. I don't know. I don't like Miami does not know how to put together a cross country team. Pittsburgh hasn't really done much. Right. Clemson might have one individual, but other than that, they don't have that depth. We are kind of star-studded by the, NC States and Florida States when they're doing well. Syracuse obviously is dominated. But, like, winning this conference doesn't really say anything to me, in my opinion, because it's not an impressive victory. Because it's just the names are impressive. Like we kind of put more respect on the name than actually what that name has done for us lately, and that's my opinion on that. So maybe when Milt gets North Carolina moving and now they get involved,
there you go.
Notre Dame keeps it chugging, and then gets Virginia going, then maybe this conference starts going. But right now, this was like a 2-team, even 1.5 team conference, in my opinion, for many years. And maybe if it starts becoming a 4 to 5 team type conference, then I'll be more willing to give it a underrated rating. So so far all my conferences are overrated. So
yeah, I know. 2 teams in the top 10, one each for each gender last year for the ACC. They had NC State at 5th on the women's side at nationals, and Notre Dame at 8th. Agree to disagree again here. The Atlantic Sun is up next. Lipscomb was your team champion. Other noted schools in this, we have Liberty, famously of a famous alum there is Sam Shalenga almost dropped that one. I think Josh McDougall also ran there as well. However, not a ton going on with the A-Sun. Otherwise, I'll go overrated.
Yeah, I agree with you. Overrated.
Yeah,
but I think it's expected, right? It's the A-Sun. So
the Big 12 is up next. They house Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas, your Texas Tech, Kansas State, Baylor. Very, very strong track conference, of course. I'll go underrated. I know you're going to go overrated because that's just your style. But when you've got the reigning NCAA cross country champion, you've got Oklahoma State in 2010s was a kind of a powerhouse for a bit there in cross country. The women's side, Iowa State, Lisa Ewell has the 10,000 meter record. I know that's not cross country, but on the women's side, it's a little bit weaker. But given what the men have done in the Big 12, I'm going to go underrated.
I'm going to go underrated up until Colorado left. As soon as Colorado left, it became overrated.
Fine.
I think for the same reasons, ACC, again, great names, some great teams up top, like Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Texas. Those were great teams up top, but the depth isn't there. I mean, I know that because I've been to this meet, and it becomes a dual meet when you watch it, between Iowa State and Oklahoma State, or between maybe a tri-meet one year when Texas had a good year. But so that's why I go. I'm looking for depth. I'm looking for that depth to give myself an underrated ranking, and so far I haven't found that. So maybe I'll never find it. We'll see.
Okay, the Big East is coming up next. We have, this has kind of been a conference that's been realigned over the last few years. There's definitely some duds in here, but the heavy hitters, of course, Villanova, Georgetown, Providence on the women's side, and at least more recently, the women's side. The men have been decent in the past. But and then maybe you could say Butler, they did win the women's race this past fall. But after that, it's a huge drop off. This is tough for me. I actually want to go underrated just because in normal circumstances, Nova and Georgetown are going to be really good. And then Providence has had that really solid women's team over the years. I got a feeling I know where you're going here, though.
I actually might surprise
really?
you. This is gonna be my first. This is gonna be my first underrated team. Underrated
without
conference,
a caveat, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a caveat. It's a caveat with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at you guys talk about it like on a pod, like Nova. That's one of the all-time great distance programs, right?
Yeah.
And Georgetown, like I just think they're the cream of the crop when it comes to the Northeast area with the Villanova, the Georgetowns, and the Providences. And I think those three stalwarts have kept this going. And now with the rise of Butler, sometimes when they bring in their international talent to kind of their UK talent, has filled that into a good conference. So I'm going to go underrated. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's severely underrated, but just a tad underrated.
Okay, I totally actually agree with you on that. Yeah, with all Nova's done, they got to be up there. Okay, we move on to a fun one. Can't wait to hear your answer next. To the Big Sky Conference. They house Of course, Northern Arizona University, other noted teams that have been pretty solid throughout the years. Southern Utah, famously a Cam Levins joint there. Montana State, Christian Serratos, stand up. Weber State, Damian Lillard, although I don't think he ran cross country. I will go underrated. It's not a deep conference, but when you have a team that won 3 titles from 2016 to 2018, you also have Cam Levins, one of the greats. I think it's underrated.
I also think it's underrated. I do think lately it's been a one-team conference.
Yeah.
But when you, like you said, you bring up, there's some really big players that have come out of the Big Sky Conference, and some non-NAU big players that have come out of that conference. And because of that, one, you have arguably one of the best distance schools of the past decade in NAU, and then you throw in the Cam Levins and the other greats from Southern Utah and Weber State, stuff like that. That's when I am willing to give it an underrated. So I agree with you.
Yeah. Christian Allen of Weber State.
Yeah.
Quietly 14th at Nationals this past fall. Like,
who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
He was a top finisher for Big Sky, right? Big Sky's top finisher.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that definitely got overlooked. That's pretty. Who would have, if you would have put money on that, you would have won a windfall. Okay, we move on to the Big South on the men's side. Their squad, the Campbell Camels, who can forget their influx of East African talent. However, I will go overrated. What do you got?
I will go overrated as well. Campbell, they just show up and, they can win the conference with like a 16 flat 5K runner as their fifth man, because it just has no depth. So I'll go with overrated for Big Sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're looks like, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So their fifth guy at conference got 15th, which that's not that bad. He ran 26:09 for 8K. Meanwhile, Athanas Kyoko ran 23:30. They had over a 2.5 minute spread and still only scored 28 points. Not a lot of depth there.
Yeah,
all right.
Exactly.
We move on to the Big Ten, another Power 5 conference. Big Ten, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Michigan, Indiana, Purdue. You know the conference. I got to go underrated. Wisconsin's been fantastic over the years. Michigan State, they won the 2014 women's title. You'd have to sell me pretty hard why this Conference of Champions it would be overrated, because I'm going under.
No, this is my biggest underrated conference, I would say, Big Ten. Normally, when people think of the best conference, you think Pac-12, but I think Big Ten can have an argument for being closer to Pac-12. Sorry, I meant Pac-12, not Big 12. Being closer to the Pac-12 as the best conference based on their depth. Yes, Pac-12 has the star powers of Stanford, Oregon, and Colorado's, but Big Ten has just a lot of teams that are all going to finish top 20, and it's very similar to the Indianas, the Michigan States, the Michigans, the Wisconsins. You can go on and on. I think it's a hard conference, so I'll go heavily underrated.
Okay. We this isn't end up being too much of a controversial episode so far, but we still got some to go here. Moving on to the Big West, it's basically California minus USC and UCLA and Cal, of course, so the big ones, and then you add in Hawaii to this conference. I mentioned the schools. We got Cal Poly, Cal State Fullerton, UC Santa Barbara, UC Riverside. Every UC you can basically think of besides LA. Overrated. I don't know how you could go anywhere else besides that.
Overrated, and may not even compete this year because they might cancel all California schools. So we'll see if that changes. But yeah, I also go with overrated. But it's not a mean overrated. It's just hey, they're not as good. So we're gonna put overrated. We're in a binary system where either overrated, underrated. So put overrated.
Okay. We go next to
Colonial
here. The Colonial. There we go. William and Mary. They have Hofstra. I'm losing my train of thought here. Hold on. I clicked onto a thing. Hofstra, William and Mary Northeastern. Of course, Northeastern, famously Eric Jenkins before his Oregon days. Hofstra, they have Alex Masai. He's their reigning champion. He ran a 13:28 5,000. Elon, they had a guy on their cross-country team many years ago who was an All-American. I remember our boy Jimmy Stevenson went to Elon. He was vouching for, I can't think of the guy's name, but he ended up being an All-American.
Louis something? Lewis.
Yeah, something like that. It's too many years ago now, too many names in between. This is, God, I think this is slightly underrated, actually. There's been some... Luis Vargas, yes, that's correct. Yes, that good memory. I'm gonna go underrated here.
Yeah, I'm also gonna go underrated just on the pure fact that it's the only association of the 32 conferences.
Okay.
Every other conference is a conference or a league. This is an association.
I mean, what do we think about the far league? This is where Eric Jenkins got his start. I mean, Northeastern. He's the pride of the CAA. And Alex Masai, shout out to him for randomly running 13:28 in the Boston Last Chance meet. I mean, well, you got a guy that's running 13:28. You're pretty good. So I'm gonna go with underrated. Okay, Conference USA, the Conference of Middle Tennessee State and UTEP. Those two schools have have had many successful East African runners over the years, but I think this conference is overrated, and here's why. You always hype up Middle Tennessee State. You always hype up UTEP. And for the most part, those guys, in cross country, they disappoint. Now, of course, Michael Cerrone didn't disappoint, and my guy, why can't I think of his name? What's the other Kenyon's name? And Emmanuel Career. Those guys are talented, but as far as cross country goes, I think these schools are overrated, and you're one of the guys who is responsible for them.
Yeah. So for many seasons, I would always underrate this conference because I was always on the buying low, I guess, or trying to hedge my bets on Middle Tennessee State and UTEP, but they kind of haven't put together a good cross-country performance. Last year was the year for Middle Tennessee State's men, but they all just bombed. They did beyond bombing though. There was 13:30 type guys finishing in the 200. So clearly something wasn't right. They literally went on 2 weeks later to run 13:36 at Boston. So clearly they're good. They just had a really awful day. So, but yeah, I guess right now, I have to put overrated based on what's happened.
Makes sense. Okay, moving on to the Horizon League. Reigning men's champion, the Ooey Pooey, whatever they are, Indiana University, Purdue University of Indiana. That's quite the name. Also have Oakland, Youngstown State, Milwaukee. I think this is the conference that houses our boss, Jenny Zahn. She went to UW Milwaukee. However, sorry, Jenny, going to overrate the Horizon League. Not much of a cross-country conference here.
Yeah, overrated.
Okay, moving right along. The Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, they might as well rename this the Iona Cross Country Conference. Iona's won this every year since, I don't know, I just assume the 1700s. We don't even really need to look back. Iona owns this. Does that mean it is overrated or underrated? Considering now they've been very, very good. Iona, but considering how dominant they've been over the years, even as they've slipped from the national top pedigree they used to be, I am going to overrate this. Iona should not be dominating so easily. Not only do they win every year, but they sweep places 1 through 9 every year. It's ridiculous.
So, what year were you born?
90.
Yeah. What day?
August 30th.
August 30th of 90. So the last time Iona lost this conference, you were 3 months old.
Really?
Okay. 1990 of October 2021. Excuse me, of October 21st. So they've won it for 3 straight decades. That is insane.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Wild.
Yeah, but what does that mean for you? Are you underrating or overrating this conference?
Well, it's overrated because it's not a
Yeah.
conference. It's Iona time trial. So
Yep, that's good.
no disrespect, of course.
Yeah, the MAC is up next. The Mid-American Conference. Pretty good football legacy for this one. Famously, Khalil Mack went to Buffalo. Ben Roethlisberger went to Miami of Ohio. Our man, what was the receiver? Antonio Brown. I believe he went to Central Michigan. But we are not talking football. We're talking cross country, and this is not a conference of quality cross country. Overrated.
It does have a good 800-meter alum in Clayton
Oh
Murphy.
yeah, I'm sorry. How could I forget
Hacker.
Clayton Murphy? I'm sorry, Clayton. Sorry. I know he's listening. What are you going, over or under?
Overrated. Yeah, it hasn't been shown that much strength of late. They do have a couple of guys who pop out here and there, like a Clayton Murphy, but no one on the cross country scene. They did the women, Eastern Michigan women, had a few years where they were kind of throwing down some good times. They had a Russian woman who was like third in the outdoor 5K. I forget her name.
Yeah.
Remember that? That was wild.
Yes.
But
yeah, I do.
Overall, yeah, I'll pass.
Got it. You'll pass. Not investing. Let's go to the MEAC. Pretty solid in the track. Cross country, though, and not as much. Are you buying or selling Norfolk State as your overrated, underrated school / team for the conference that is the what do we call this? Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference.
I'm selling. We're changing it from overrated to underrated.
No. We'll go back. We'll go overrated. I'm going overrated.
Overrated. I also just think there's a MAC, and a MEAC, right? So we need to combine these, right?
Yeah.
I know. Well, I guess it does make me a little happy, but like it is a little confusing when you have 3 different conferences that all say MAC in different ways. So, but anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, I would go overrated for the third MEAC.
Okay. Another M1, the Missouri Valley Conference, the MVC, Bradley, Drake, Northern Iowa, Loyola. They made a Final Four run a couple of years ago, but in cross country, well, Bradley made the meet in 2018. That was a pretty big deal for them. On the women's side, I feel like they're not as strong. I think of, what was the guy from Indiana State a few years ago? John Muscari. He was pretty good.
Yeah.
They've had some dudes over the years. Maybe just like slightly underrated.
I can give you that. I'll give you that to you. Slightly.
I mean, it's not like they're like putting together powerhouse teams, but like Drake too. I should have mentioned Drake. Like maybe they haven't had like a team, but they've got some dudes that have become like decent marathoners. The guy that's on 10 Men, I can't think of his name right now. They've had some decent runners. Of course, our formerly colleague Adam Ostrike, he's a legend there at Drake. So I can't do him justice by overrating them. I'm gonna put them as underrated.
You're thinking of Reed Fisher. That's what you're thinking of.
Reed Fisher. There we go. Thank you. Perfect. Yeah. Okay, we go to Mountain West. How appropriate. Talking with Josh Kerr yesterday. Not sure how you can overrate a conference that includes New Mexico, Wainea-Kalati, Edna Kurgat, basically a team that's been on the podium several years in a row. Air Force has been pretty good on the men's side. Utah State won last year. I mean, this is it's not like a massively strong conference. It's a smaller conference, but I think you could safely say it's underrated.
Yeah, this is definitely underrated. And I think it's majorly underrated, especially since it's not a non-Power 5 conference. Yeah. But I would argue that this is better than a majority of the Power 5 conferences when it comes to distance running.
Wow.
I would take Mountain West over Big East, over ACC, over Big 12, over a bunch, so because they got that depth and they spread it out well. They have some good middle distance guys too, so it's wild.
All right, we move on to the Northeast Conference, the NEC, such noted powers as Wagner, Central Connecticut, Mount St. Mary's, St. Francis, Merrimack, and Bryant. I'm going to be honest, Gordon, this one, if you kind of just read it to me off the top, I would almost think, is that a D3 conference? Because the name of the schools almost sounds D3-esque. I got to go overrated. I don't know who's rating them over what they deserve, but this isn't much of a cross country conference.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Overrated. I would take yeah, I like that take of it's very D3 feeling. So I would agree with that.
That's kind of that's what it sounds like. It's interesting. Okay, moving right along, the Ohio Valley Conference. What they are known for, having Eastern Kentucky as far as cross country. They get a lot of foreigners into their team on Eastern Kentucky, and they've had some success, particularly in the steeplechase. But I'm on the fence with this one. It kind of, at least on the men's side, is Eastern Kentucky and not a whole lot else. So I'll go overrated.
Yeah, overrated as well. Belmont has put together a few good runners. The McLeod brothers, they've been running well, but yeah, it's kind of the Ohio Valley Conference is starting to look more and more like the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, where Iona wins every year.
Bold
it's
statement.
Eastern Kentucky just wins every year. So,
all right, okay. Another small one up next. We've got a little thing called the PAC-12 Conference. Just kidding, it's the Pac-12. Basically, impossible to overrate this. Colorado, Oregon, Stanford, UCLA, Washington, Cal, Arizona. I mean, sure, it gets a little weaker at the bottom, but oh my goodness, the top 5-6 schools are powerhouse, absolutely cross-country juggernauts.
Okay, hear me out.
Oh, no.
Now, while this is arguably the best conference,
yeah,
I think it is slated as better than it actually is. Yes, it's the best, but it's not like the goat of all goats of goats. It's just a good conference. It happens to be the best conference, but it's not the goaty goat. It's not like, I think we over fantasize about how great this conference is in distance running. Yes, it's great. Don't get me wrong. It's the best in the conference, but it's not like this like juggernaut where it's like in its own new world. And that's why I would say it's a little overrated, because I think we kind of turn it into like this, like,
was it? I'm just curious. I mean, we look at Colorado, an absolute star-studded college. I mean, incredible university. Oregon, they're literally hosting the World Championships in 2022. Stanford, I mean, you can list off all the stars they've had. Maybe it falls off after those three, so that could be your argument. But I mean, Washington, they have the pals now. They've been better. I don't know how you can say it's not as good as advertised. It's properly rated. I know we're not doing that though, so you have to go to underrated. I mean, do you say it's an overrated conference? Basically, all the stars go to that conference.
I think it's overrated on its greatness.
Because of the lack of depth?
Well, like I think we make it seem like if you got 10th in this conference, you're like amazing, but you're not. You're good, but you're not like not like, it's still there's still like separation where like really only the top 3 to 5 athletes are actually like all Americans. Right? I mean, let's look at the results.
It can be. I mean, maybe so like, maybe cross country not his strong suit, but Stephen Fahey got 16th. He got 16th last year in cross country. He was the 2019 steeple champion. I know you can't compare apples to oranges there, but
like, no, let's look purely at last year on the men. Joe Klecker wins. Okay, Joe Klecker, he was a top 5 guy. Okay, Cooper Tier gets second. Cooper Tier, top 10 guy. Andrew Jordan didn't run, so we'll take him out. Alex Osberg, top 20 guy. Robert Brandt, he's a top 25 guy. Thomas Ratcliffe ran awful. Then you get to Kayshawn Harrison and John. Like, I just feel like eventually it becomes, it's not filled with a bunch of like top 20 guys. It's filled with a bunch of top 60 guys.
Okay.
We think that's why I say like we think they're all top 20, but really they're all top 60. And there's a big difference between 20th and 60th, right? 60th, don't get me wrong, is good, and you're good. I just think that we think that like just don't have any other meet, the order of Pac-12 is going to be your NCAA like finish order.
No,
but
of course
really,
not,
when
no.
when you see where these Pac-12 team guys finish when they're going up against the BYU's, the NAU's, the Syracuse's, like all the other teams out there, like it's not Pac-12 versus everyone else. Like,
Okay. Fair. You
that's what.
filibustered me there. I can't answer back because we got to keep moving here. The Patriot League is up next. Boston University is here. Navy, Army in this one as well, but I think you got to go Overrated for the Patriot. Sorry if that's un-American of me. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's compliment, I guess, a Patriot League to be in the same category as Pac-12 for me, as putting them both overrated. So yeah, Patriot League also
There you
overrated.
go. All right, moving right along. The SEC, you could never overrate them in track, but can you do it in cross country? Even though they have the reigning NCAA women's champion, I think I want to overrate this conference. Not a hugely strong cross country conference. My rationale, I applied it to other things to say things were underrated, and I'm taking it and making them overrated here. I know they have Arkansas, and I know Ole Miss, and I know that Chris Schweizer went to Missouri, and they've had a lot of names, but
Alabama.
Alabama. I just think as far as like cross country performance, it seems like, yes, again, I know that they have the defending women's champion and the men have been good in the past, but it seems like this conference is always disappointing at NCAAs for the most part. Not always the case, clearly, again, last fall, but I think overall this conference isn't hugely successful, at least the last few years in cross country.
I agree with the last few years, but I think overall, though, it's underrated.
Overall, okay.
I think about Tennessee, like when they were throwing down all those great milers and half milers, and obviously Missouri with Chris Schweizer, and then Kentucky's had some good like solid strong runners on both the men's and women's side. Georgia, you had the Drop sisters. I just think that there's always some random like Kenyon who goes to Auburn who runs well. So I don't know. I think that it is underrated. I agree though, they're not good right now, and I think that they're a little overrated in 2020. But I think when you go all the way through the past 10 years, 15 years, it starts becoming a little underrated.
Okay. Moving along.
The
SoCon, the Southern Conference. Furman has run this league for several years, but it's not incredibly deep. Now, they do have some solid Furman athletes. Hannah Steelman, although she's transferred since to NC State, she ran for Wofford. I can't ever know how to pronounce this. So they've had a few names here. But overall, I think you got to say this Southern Conference is overrated. What do you got?
Yes. Southern Conference, another one of those Iona, Eastern Kentucky type meet conferences where one team owns it. Southern Conference is overrated because just Furman runs it. Southland Conference.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of Texas schools here.
Yeah. I think we should put Southland Conference and the Southwest Athletic Conference together. One. They're both these Southern conferences with not much talent. Yes, Lamar, pretty good out there in Southland, but everyone else in the Southwestern Athletic Conference and the Southland Conference, I put big overrated on both.
Yeah. Yep, totally can agree. They've had some names over the years. I think of my guy that I famously in like 2015 that they had that 5K guy. What was his name? He ran a really fast 5K, and then I said like, "Oh, he's not much," and then people got mad at me. I can't think of that guy's name. Then he didn't end up making the NCAA outdoor meet. You know who I'm talking about, but I can't think of his name. Sorry about that. But yes,
Jordan. I'm gonna find what is his name.
It wasn't Peyton Jordan. It was Stanford. It was Stanford Invite. The 20. Well, I'd have to look. You have to look up 2015 Stanford Invite.
I'll find it. Up in Lamar Stanford Invitational, FloTrack.
Oh no, Wi-Fi is giving out on me.
Yeah, who is this guy? Yeah, you called him out. Oh, Stabler.
Yeah. Was that his name?
Stabler. Yeah, Stabler Smash.
Oh yeah,
Sam Stabler of Lamar.
Sam Stabler. Yeah, he ran like 13:31. That was a pretty big one, but then he didn't end up making the NCAA meet. That's tough. Okay, moving right along. We go to
You're
the
saying overrated? You're saying overrated?
yes, overrated. Sorry, very
Okay.
overrated. We go to the Sun Belt. Arkansas Little Rock, their head coach right now, Alan Webb. They've got Coastal Carolina, which we have the Wild Shut brothers, famous for being twins and for running really well in the regular season and then not so well at NCAA. Sorry for that shout out. A little offensive. Sorry. Overrated.
Yeah, I believe the Wildshot brothers are in the portal right now, so they might be transferring to a different conference. So might see them join some cross country program that can fourth or fifth man and look to
That'd be
compete with the
decent.
NAUs and
Yeah.
BYUs. Yeah, it'd be interesting.
One of the brothers was an All-American several years ago, 2017, I think. I can't remember which one. But I said that they don't show up, but they have at least one of them has notched an All-American finish in cross country. So pretty good runners. All right, this one I'm eager. I've been waiting to get to this one. The Ivy League, also known as HEPS, when it comes to their conference meet. Penn, Harvard, Princeton, Columbia, Yale. You know them all. This is an overrated conference. People freak out about who does well here, and yes, they've had some good names. Kyle Merber,
they've had some great names.
He learned how to Twitter at Columbia, and he's a great guy. But my goodness, this conference is so overrated. Can you even name their reigning champion, Kenny Vastbinder? Come on, this is not as big of a deal as people are out there to make this.
I will give to you that that Ivy League of late hasn't been that strong, but there's been some times when they are put together some very. I mean, you have Don Cabral has come out of this conference. You have Ashley Higginson. You have what's the Cornell woman, 1500 meter runner. Why is that?
Well, you're thinking of Yale. We got Kate Grace.
No, Kate Grace fell twice. Cornell girl fell twice at the world stage.
Yeah. Morgan Usini.
Yeah, Morgan Usini. You have oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm Dartmouth guy.
Ben True.
Yeah, Ben True. There's just a lot of good guys. There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Princeton has had a ton. I mean, Princeton won the 4x mile and like DMR, the DMR at NCAA indoors. You know, they got
Peter Callahan. You haven't even brought up that guy. That's your favorite athlete of all time.
Peter Callahan. Well, I'm trying to be unbiased, but I think that they've had some good and like
they've had some good names.
Like the Ivy League is like the breeding ground for fifth years everywhere. Think of all the fifth years who have gone to other programs to like help them win titles. I mean,
Johnny
you look
Gregoric,
at
Will Gohegan. Yeah.
They're just like they rip off a bunch of fast guys. Like I don't know. I think that they're typically on average they will have probably 6 sub-4 milers in their conference.
Yeah.
For yes, obviously Pac-12 is going to have more than 6 sub-4 milers, but for their size and the way they are, with their academics and all that, that's pretty impressive.
Okay.
So I'm sticking with underrated.
I could be swayed here, but I'm going to stick with overrated. But yeah, I could be swayed. Okay, moving right along. The Summit League. We're coming into our last few. It's basically every Dakota school you can think of. I get confused between North Dakota State, South Dakota State, all the Dakota states. Overrated? You going to change my mind there?
I agree. Overrated.
Okay. I mean, it's cold. They've had some names over the years, but it's just so cold. I can't do anything besides overrate them.
We'll skip that second last one. We'll go over to the Western Athletic Conference, the WAC.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Utah Valley, Cal Baptist, which is a new team to the Division One. They're right. That's because they were Division Two. Now they're making the transfer, so they're not eligible for NCAAs yet. But they've been running well. They dominate this conference. The Cal Baptist team, Utah Valley, Grand Canyon, which is I would love to go to school at the Grand Canyon. It just sounds like a great school to go to.
It's not actually located in the Grand Canyon. Really false advertising there.
There we go. Okay. I'll go overrated for the WAC as well.
Yeah. Listen, looks like Cal Baptist has been a solid program, and they just transitioned from D2 over. and they look to be like a team that's going to be solid in Division I when they finally get to compete at NCAAs and whatnot. But anytime you're just coming over from D2 and then you're sweeping the conference, at least on the women's side, that's a problem. It tells me that this conference is overrated, even though not many people are freaking out about the WAC and cross country. So overrated.
And then the final conference, the West Coast Conference, it only has cross country, does not have indoor or outdoor, but it has some great teams. BYU, Portland, San Francisco, Gonzaga, San Diego, Santa Clara, Loyola Marymount, which is Sleeper League, good team, St. Mary's, Pacific, and Pepperdine. But mainly it's led by the BYU, Portland, and San Francisco.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Pepperdine, they just got last on the men's side, and how they do on the men's side here. Pepperdine, they got 7th last year. However, their campus is the most ridiculously beautiful place on earth. And then you add in the fact that BYU, Portland, and San Francisco being actually good teams. This is an underrated conference because I encourage all you who can afford $45,000 a year in tuition to attend Pepperdine because it is absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, they had the best overall cross country program, men and women, with BYU. Men champions, women runner up. This you have to underrate this conference.
That's you're dunking on Colorado right there by giving BYU the overall program title. I guess of late
of last year. Of last year.
Okay.
Not overall. Overall. No. Of last year. I'm sorry. I know we've been confusing on this episode a little bit. Of last year. No. Overall, no is probably, yeah, you're right. Colorado, potentially Oregon. But yeah.
Yeah, I would go underrated, heavily underrated. It's so underrated that some of the coaches don't even try, like Portland, right? Yeah. Rob Connor, notorious for tanking on his conference meet to kind of focus on regionals and nationals.
He schedules a vacation every year around late October for conference weekend. He's like, I'm not working this weekend.
He goes to the spa for a week. Yeah. He pulls what I do. He goes to the beach, right, and sits in a McDonald's parking lot, puts on Wi-Fi, and watches the meet on his phone. That's probably what he does.
Well, he goes to a vegan parking lot. He goes to a gluten-free vegan restaurant Wi-Fi. But yeah, same thing.
Excuse me. But this is going to be an interesting conference when it does become, if they do create automatic qualifiers out of conferences, to see BYU and Portland kind of
actually have to
go for like an auto qualifier.
Portland have
right?
to try. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm excited for that. And it's a wild, like, the history of this meet because Portland dominated it. Like they were just like,
yeah,
it was no question. It was like the Portland of like the way Iona owns, but like ever since BYU has been there, now it's become like BYU kind of taking over and a little bit of a nice little rivalry going. I like the BYU Portland rivalry. That's my favorite rivalry cross country is the BYU Portland because they're both always underrated nationally, right? Because they're not the Colorados, the Stanfords, the Oregons. So they all had the chip on their shoulder. So it's two teams with a chip on their shoulder going at each other. You got to like that. So I like BYU Portland.
Perfect.
That's why I like this conference. And it is the ultimately underrated conference. So, all right, we'll round this up with one last thing. What is your number one conference?
Still got to be the Pac-12. They may not have as many quality teams as the Big Ten, but Pac-12 with Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and Stanford, absolutely Pac-12.
If you're going to go Pac-12, my best conference is the Mountain West. I like the Mountain West.
What?
I think it's still, yeah. Well, based on like just what it brings, I think it's underrated, man. I think it has some cool depth. I like it.
Yeah, we forgot to mention Boise State on the women's side, but yeah, Boise State's been solid. Yeah.
So
okay.
West,
I mean, I don't think they can shake a stick at the Pac-12 or even the Big Ten, but go for it. Sure, you can have that. You can be on the Mountain West Island. I'll go ahead and head over to Palo Alto with the Pac-12.
Okay, Mr. Glitzy Glamour Pac-12ian, whatever. We get it. So
all right.
There we go. I can't believe we went through 32 conferences in under an hour.
Beautiful.
Boom. Hit it.
Beautiful.
That's
all
impressive.
Right. Well, we will see you guys. Yeah.
We'll see you guys.
tomorrow.
12th conference. Like, are they really talking about the Missouri Valley Conference in depth right now? And then they turn us off. Fast forward. So maybe we should put timestamps to their favorite conference in the description. But yeah, do this again, man. I won't see you till probably what, Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday.
Sounds about right. Enjoy the beach.
Email the pod, FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, send us your hot takes or whatever questions. We need things to talk about. We just spent an hour talking about cross-country conferences. So clearly we're going deep in the well right now. So give us something to talk about, and we'll try to talk about track in a fun way. But yeah, tomorrow will be me and Kevin, and yeah, then enjoy the weekend. Bye.